The first map on our list, Ascent, is a map where your standard smokers Brimstone, Omen, and Astra are all perfectly viable. Starting off attacking A site, you're going to want to throw a smoke on the closing door on the left, making sure it doesn't stick out too far on the site so no enemies walk out. The second smoke should be up on the left side of heaven to keep enemies who might want to peek out honest. If you've got teammates splitting A short, then you can replace the door smoke with the smoke that covers the cross through tree into site instead. On B site, you should smoke the door to market again, making sure it doesn't stick out too much. And also smoke off CT spawn so that there are no pesky defenders holding the walkout of B main. If your team is split pushing through market, obviously don't smoke off your teammates, but instead smoke deep mid like so. On mid, you can cover A short with the smoke on the corner of catwalk to prevent sight lines to tiles, or smoke bottom mid to stop enemies from spotting you at top mid. If your team decides on pushing bottom mid, then you can smoke deep here to walk into market without the threat of defenders that might be holding from their spawn. On defense, your go-to smokes if attackers are pushing either of the two sites should of course be the ones to cover the walkout from both A main and B main to help stop the hit. Other than that, you can throw a one-way smoke easily on top of this wall if you want to try to take control of A main. And you can block off top mid or tiles with the smoke if your team wants to venture into taking some control on mid. The next map on our list is Fracture, and here players may favor either Brimstone or Viper. We'll cover both smoke spots and Viper wall lineups to make sure you're ready whichever you prefer. Firstly, for attacking A site is Brimstone. The best smokes are on Rope and Sands and CT spawn. If your team decides to push with all 5 through either main or dish, you'll want to smoke off the opposite area to make sure defenders can't pick you off as you enter the site. As a Viper, you can wall straight across from here in attacker spawn and cover both Rope and CT with one wall, then deploy it as your team begins their execute. On B site, the key areas to cover as you push are Canteen and Generator with your smokes. And similar to how it was on A site, you can smoke off the cross to Arcade if you're going in with all 5 players through B main, or alternatively smoke off B main if you're venturing with 5 in Arcade. Though you can also choose to leave these open to threaten a potential lurk. It's up to your best judgment. As a Viper, you can simply wall across Generator and Canteen fairly easily from either B main or Arcade with no trouble. Alternatively, some teams prefer to wall straight across from the edge of B main like this in order to have a narrower corridor to isolate the site out of view from the defending team. On defense, your standard Brimstone smokes for A will be a smoke covering A main or drop. If you get information on enemies' locations there, or if they take control of Sands, you can smoke off this cross leading towards the site. This allows you to walk out of the spawn smoke and still stop the split, or at the very least out of any teammates on site. As a Viper, you can wall diagonally across the entrance to A main like this, effectively blocking off main in 2 areas which could force the attacking team to use utility to clear past the first part of the wall. And again, for the second to enter the site, pairing this with an orb on drop will effectively cover all entry points to the site, with just Sands needing a close eye from a teammate. On B side as a Brimstone, you'll want to be ready to smoke off B main like this to block any oncoming attackers. And if you want to smoke Arcade, it's best done further back here to stop them from taking control of the area in the first place. We wouldn't recommend smoking the cross to Arcade from site as it means the attackers can take control of Arcade and B heaven without giving away any information or taking any fights. As a Viper, it's a fairly similar setup, except you can place your orb to cover B main at the start of the round just like this, and wall straight across from the Generator to block enemies from taking over Arcade with no problem. Before we continue with Haven, I just quickly want to let you know that if you're looking for the fastest way to rank up, you can always pay a visit to our website ProGuides.com. For just $8 a month, you get access to everything, whether it's our exclusive guides, Radiant and Immortal level coaching, or even pro boot camps. So check it out today. Haven is another map where Brimstone, Astra, and Omen can all excel in the right hands. When attacking A site, putting down a smoke on Heaven is always a safe bet. And for your CT smoke, instead of smoking the doorway itself, you'll have better luck smoking off the cubby the enemies walk into so that they're forced to fight across from graffiti and under Heaven if they want to get out onto site. On B site, the smokes are very straightforward. You want to smoke off A link and C link to get the bomb down on the site without enemies walking in on top of you. Not much more to say about that one. On C, you'll be doing just fine with very straightforward smokes. Again, to cover garage and CT spawn, giving you access to clear out the area without having to worry about enemies holding from off site. If your team decides to split push through C through garage, then smoke off garage window instead of the doorway leading into C site to cover their push. Defending on Haven can be a little more complex, with attackers often favoring defaults, meaning that taking a bit of an aggressive control on defense can be invaluable. If you're looking to take space on A main, a smoke just outside of A lobby like this would be ideal. Otherwise, if you're holding back on site, just smoking off A short and long depending on where pressure's coming from will be plenty. For B site, just smoking off the front of site is fine. Or if you're looking to take some mid control, then smoking off mid window will be the safest bet. The same goes for garage. Just smoke off the double doors and you're good to go. For C site, smoke off C long to force the attacking team to use utility to enter site and give you the opportunity to spray down long and try to catch a few kills. If enemies are rushing C, it can also be worthwhile to put a smoke here, especially on Omen. This allows you to flash enemies coming out of long and sets your team up nicely for a retake. Icebox is a map where Viper is the preferred choice, but other smokers are definitely usable to a degree. We'll cover both Viper smokes and conventional smokes in this guide. For attacking A with a Viper wall, just stand against this ledge wall and line up your wall so that it covers the top of screens as close to the front as you can. That way, it covers all the top of screens and lower to make sure you aren't caught out from either of those two angles as you push onto site. As for smoking with a conventional smoker, you're going to want to smoke off rafters just to the right of top site in order to avoid any defenders from peeking out from there, and use your second smoke on the bottom next to screen. That way you can still hold for enemies walking onto the site, but you can't be shot at from screen when pushing the site yourself. For mid on Icebox, you'll either want to wall off your path for under tube, that's if you're planning on pushing through B as a team, or if you're just lurking, you can throw a smoke by standing in this corner, looking up between these two buildings and left clicking. With a conventional smoker, you can replicate the smoke for a lurk to use as a smoke to cut off the same angle where the wall was by smoking slightly deeper in mid and smoking off kitchen, as well as for cover on that mid to B execute. For B site on Icebox with Viper, you want to be throwing a wall from main that travels diagonally across the site, cutting off all angles from site, top site, and snowman all in one. With conventional smokes, the best place to throw them is on top site and covering cross to back site and snowman. For defense on Icebox, as a Viper, it's very common these days to put a Viper wall on A across the front of site, and slant it slightly so that it sits on top of 410. Then you can go sit on B site, placing a smoke on default and mollying the bomb planter to buy your team some time. As a conventional smoker, you can adjust your smokes anywhere on A to suit where your team needs. You can take some inspiration from the smokes shown on screen, but adapting your smokes to where they're needed the most by seeing where the attackers are peeking from can be a vital skill. Just cover up wherever it's needed and you'll do alright. On B site, you have a few options with smokes. If the opposing team already has control of yellow, you can smoke off both right and left side of yellow to cover any peeks out from there. Otherwise, you can smoke with two smokes deeper in main to try and stop their walkout. Lotus is a map where conventional smokers reign supreme once again, with our preference being Brimstone. Starting off with attacking A site, you have two options for smokes. Ordinarily, I'd recommend a smoke on stairs here, but if you're really struggling against an oppressive peek from the enemies on site, you can smoke further out like seen here to focus on taking control of main first. Your second smoke you want to use to block off top rope here to cover the cross onto site. If you have that third Brimstone smoke, you can use it to either block off silent drop on site, or if the door to link is broken, you can smoke that off as well. For attacking B site, you'll want to use a smoke to cover C link and A link vent as a priority, and if you've got that third Brimstone smoke, use it to smoke off upper. It'll help prevent getting sprayed down as you execute. Finally, for C site, your smokes are going to cover waterfall and CT, allowing you to cut off rotates to the site with no problem. If the close right is a problem and you don't have a jet smoke or a cipher cage to cover it temporarily, you can smoke the cross as well, at risk of having someone be able to walk out on the site by using it as cover or sitting inside of it with a shotgun. Defending on Lotus is fairly straightforward. To stop an A push, you want to smoke off just the entrance to site here and smoke off tree as well if they've opened up the revolving door. If your team wants to take some control of A main, which is generally recommended, then you can smoke deep towards the attacker's spawn. Be careful though, you can't take this on your own. You will need supportive utility from your teammates. Think about a breach stun, flashes, or maybe even a nade. All will work well. On B side, it's fairly standard. You'll want to smoke off B main if you suspect a push incoming, or smoke off A link if the enemies are pivoting from A main. On C site, it'll be much of the same, just a smoke on main to deny information and slow down the push. Moving on to Pearl, and our favorite agent on this map is Astra. On attack for A site, there are three entrances for defenders to hold the site from, being stairs to art, flowers, and secret, aka pit. It's up to you which of these three areas to leave open, but it has to be noted that you'll likely have to fight for the other remaining angle. The most common way to go about it is to leave pit open and try and take control. If you have a split push through art, obviously don't smoke the stairs, so instead use the two aforementioned ones or pop down a smoke in the hallway of connector. When pushing mid, if going through art to A, you'll want to smoke off connector on your left and flowers as you push site. If you're pushing into B link through double doors, you can either smoke the doorway to connector to push B or smoke off the link towards B like this to take control of connector. When pushing B site, the ideal smokes are covering heaven and link. However, if you found that players fighting backside have made things difficult, you can choose to smoke that off to be able to push up to main and smoke heaven along with it. On defense, your smokes are fairly standard. You'll want to smoke off A main if there's information on a push coming on through here. If the enemy team is pushing into art, you can smoke the exit from art like this to force them to either use their utility to push out safely or walk out holding one of the two open angles as sitting ducks. For defending B site, you can use double smokes on main to have full coverage just like this, preventing any vision of the site, and that's about it. Our final map is Split. Split is a great map for any of the conventional smokers in Omen, Brimstone, and Astra, so take your pick from any of the three. When attacking on split A site, the two key areas to smoke off are heaven window and screens. If you're struggling against a peek out from elbow, you can smoke out a little bit like we're doing here to cover up elbow as well. But this comes at the cost of allowing rotating players access into elbow without being seen. When going mid, you'll want to smoke off mid vents to smoke off anyone holding the angle from there to take control of the area. If you decide to push into vents to A, you can technically smoke off the cross between B heaven and drop into vents. But it's usually better to force enemies back, and use your two smokes on CT heaven and screens instead. Finally, when attacking B site, you'll want to smoke off heaven like this, and throw a smoke towards defender spawn as well. If your team is splitting through heaven, you can replace the normal heaven smoke with a smoke deep inside of heaven instead. For defense on A site, you can smoke off deep main while holding from ramp and the cross from screens or elbow. Or if they push in too quickly and the site player has lost control of main, you can smoke off the cross to site as well as the walk into heaven, preventing the enemies from pushing out and going anywhere. When defending mid, you can just smoke off the cross here just like this to keep the attackers at bay with no problem. You can put the smoke deeper or closer as required based on how much control you need of the area. For B, it's very straightforward. Just smoke off B main as normal and you'll be absolutely good to go. So there you have it guys, the best smokes on every map. Leave a like if you enjoyed and don't forget to subscribe. This has been your host Sergeant Frost and I'll see you all in the next one.